Hi, everybody. It's Tom O'Connor. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. And we're here with my good friend, Brett Burney, uh, who is doing his imitation of a 3L law student while studying for the bar in Arizona. No, I hate to
Yes,
even
indeed.
I
Yeah.
hate to even bother him. Um,
No,
Brett,
this
tell,
is
tell, tell
fun.
people, for those
Yeah.
who don't know what's going on, tell people why you're studying for a bar exam.
Well, I work with a company called Nextpoint, which provides eDiscovery software. It's a cloud-based software, very similar to some of the other tools out there. Mostly mid-sized and smaller law firms that, as you know, Tom, because we wrote the book about this recently, that there's just such a need for some of these mid-sized and small firms on how to navigate all these e-discovery challenges and the junk that you have to go through, and it is doable. It's possible, right? So Nextpoint is the software company, which has also launched Nextpoint Law Group, which is a law firm based out of Arizona, an ABS, an alternate business solution, I think, which
Yeah.
is it's a specific accommodations by the Arizona Supreme Court to have basically law firms that are owned by non-lawyers, just in the interest of trying to help folks, get a little bit better access to legal help. And at least specifically for the Nextpoint Law Group, we just really focus on e-discovery counsel, right? We come in and help a lot of
Okay.
firms that may not have that specialty internally about how to navigate, collection, e-discovery collection, for example, or how to address things to the judge or the other side, or even how to answer production requests from the other side. All this stuff, Tom, that I know you do all the time, and we're just kind of formalized as a law firm in that. So, and that's why we focus around the Arizona space.
And to that end, you're taking the bar association to become a member of the Arizona bar. Well, you're a braver
That's
man than
right.
I, young Adele.
Well, or stupider, man.
Oh no, not at all. But
One could go either way, Tom.
that's that's I don't have the gumption to to try to do that at my age. What do you say? It's been 20 years since you took a bar?
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
long, long time. But
yeah.
hey, life doesn't stop. Well, maybe for some people it does. But as you know, last week I was just at the ABA Techshow in
Yes.
Chicago, which is always a fun thing. And even with things going on, like taking the bar or anything else, I know this conference always holds a special place in your heart. It's one
Oh
of
yes.
the first places I met you,
Yep.
and just something that I enjoy going to and speaking
And
at as
that's
well.
really what I wanted to ask you about. So,
Yeah, good.
did you speak at the show?
I did, yes, sir. So I had two sessions. I
Oh,
spoke with the co-founder of Lit Software, which is a company that makes iPad apps, which is
oh,
TrialPad,
oh yeah,
TranscriptPad, and
yeah,
DocReviewPad. Very
yeah.
well-known apps. In fact, I've been talking about these apps since 2010 when the iPad was introduced, and that's at the end of 2010 is when Lit Software, the company, had TrialPad. Then they've now expanded
Yes.
into TranscriptPad and DocReviewPad, which are
Okay.
really excellent, excellent legal apps, legal specific apps, if you will. And so the co-founder of that company, Tara Cheever, and I did a two-session panel where we really just talked about how you would utilize the iPad in trial presentation. We even went a little upstream though, and like how would you organize transcripts, right? And utilizing transcript pad, how would you set up a production set, especially if it's a very small collection of documents? You can even do that in Doc Review Pad. As you and I both know, that as soon as you start getting a little bit bigger as far as the number of documents or the complexity of the documents, that's when you kind of need to jump into a platform like Nextpoint, for example. And even Tara will admit to that, But for smaller,
Yeah.
collections, and you just need to have a few, I don't know, just a couple of handfuls of documents, you can certainly do that in Doc Review Pad. And then the
Cool.
second session that we did, we really just focused all in on trial pad, all the equipment you need to do a trial presentation, how to be effective. It was just great. Lots of, as you know, in Tech Show, the people, the attendees come because they want to learn.
Yes.
And I love that because there's always good questions that they're throwing at you from the floor, and you really get into the meat of the things that they want to know about. And that gets me excited.
Cool. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've talked to several people who were in attendance. I, of course, was unable to
Yeah.
attend due to the wonderful gift that keeps on giving from the city of New York. I was at Legal Week the week before with
Yes.
you and the good folks at Nextpoint, and
Yes.
came home with fond memories and a positive test on COVID. So so I missed Mardi Gras, I missed
We're
the
all gonna
ABA
take
Tech Show.
responsibility for one of those things, Tom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was so sad to hear you
Oh,
came back with a COVID.
bummer. Um, and so tell me, how was it? The folks I talked to who were there said much similar to Legal Week. They thought there were more vendors, more excited vendors. That the sort of the oomph is back in the legal space and activity in the legal space. Yeah, you agree?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, Tom. Yeah, that's a great observation. And in fact, I was pleasantly surprised at Legal Week, although you and I have both attended many years of both of these conferences, and so there are some differences. And I guess I kind of anticipated seeing a little bit of that with Legal Week, just because I had kind of heard from, I don't know, just over the last year or so, I've kind of seen things ramp up, or I sort of had that expectation. But I was very pleasantly surprised to see that reflected at the ABA Techshow. In fact, just even walking down into the exhibit hall, which is in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency, it's kind of in the basement. So I always feel like, you got to go down into the dungeon kind of a thing. But
down the escalator, down the stairway, around the corner.
Right, exactly.
Down
that kind
escalator.
of a thing.
Yeah.
But darned if people didn't find their way down there, Tom, and that was it. And once you did go down there, for the last couple of years, as you probably know, Clio usually has a huge booth that's set up right at the very bottom of that first escalator. And so that's just a really great first impression, because their booth is all lit up. It's pretty big. There's happy people in there. And that just, I mean, as silly as it may sound, that really just, I think, sets the mood when you go into this. And you turn the corner. And yeah, it was really bright. And I don't just mean that with the lights. I mean, I felt like people were really excited to be there. I thought that the layout of the exhibit hall was really good and conducive to like making sure people just flowed around. Every time I went down there, there were attendees talking to the vendors, which of course you always want to encourage at any time. There was the startup alley that was over in the corner. There was like a stage, I think, where they had a few kind of lunch and learn sessions, and as well as like the prize drawing, I think, on Friday afternoon. In the middle of all of that, as you remember, Tom, they're usually the ABA, or at least the law practice division, sets up like a little bookstore. Although it's kind of hard to call it a bookstore now, because they don't even sell books there. They just have the books on two shelves, and so you can look at them and then you can order them online. However, they do a beautiful job of like setting some couches down there, and so there was always people just congregating and kind of talking. And there was a lot of folks like myself, that have been coming to the show for a while, so that if attendees walked up and had a question about, I'm looking for this vendor, or I want to talk to somebody about managing documents, it was so easy just to kind of walk them right over to a booth, for example, or just to kind of point them in the right direction. There was a very, very, very good energy in the exhibit hall, and I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, I heard that constantly. How about attendance? How were the numbers?
Yeah, of course it's hard to get an exact number from the division, and but I should be fair to say it's hard to get a number from any conference, right? I think Legal Week. What was Legal Week? I think I heard there was 80,000 people there, right? I mean, so maybe we're just so old at doing this, Tom. It's like I take all of those numbers with a grain of salt, but I can tell you anecdotally, or from an observation standpoint, it looked good. It looked solid. For me, coming to Tech Show, just as I alluded to earlier, it's not so much is everything crowded, but it's almost like the people that are there, they just have such good questions. You know this, Tom. The people will stand at the bottom of the dais, after you get off, like when you're speaking, and there's a line of people that want to have questions. They want your business card. They want to follow up with you. They're pinging you just because they're so hungry for good, avenues of information. And so a lot of times, while I'm not always paying attention to the numbers for all the reasons that I just discussed, it's really just like, what's the quality of the attendees? And I've always thought that ABA Techshow is very good at that. Now, that said, several of the keynotes and the startup competition, which happened last Wednesday night, very well attended, standing room only kind of a thing. I know everybody kind of uses that phrase, but literally there was no seats available. People were just, buzzing around. Again, the exhibit hall, there was always people walking around. So I guess I would say it was well attended. I'm not going to say it was a blowout, but it was solid and well attended.
Good. Well, and that was one of the questions I had about what you just mentioned, the Startup Alley. Leading up to it, I was reading Bob Ambrosi's discussion, and it seemed like again, the excitement always seems to be high for that. Sounds like that was your experience.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I can't remember how long ago they started this, and Bob was involved with this from the beginning. Yeah, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, at least 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4.
Before COVID, right?
It's possible, but I got to tell you, I mean, even in those very beginning years, whenever that was exactly, it just seemed like, oh, this is a good idea. Let's, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. But I will tell you, Tom, the last 2 years, last year and this year, I was amazed at how many people were there in attendance. I guess, and from my personal standpoint, I thought, okay, well, that's nice. I'm glad we're going to give the startup businesses, a little bit of time on stage to share their product, give your little pitch, But I thought, well, but I don't know that everybody that's attending Tech Show is necessarily going to be interested in that. And boy, was I proved wrong. That was the most crowded session. I remember last year, I remember going in there like, wow, there was a lot of people in here. And then just last week when we had it this year, again, like this is I mean, I think I saw Doug Austin or maybe Bob, somebody wrote there was like over 51,000 votes for the startup folks, which again is just amazing. So that was the initial vote, to get who was going to be on the competition. I think there was maybe 15, if I'm not mistaken. And so Bob Ambrogi does a good job emceeing the thing. He brings up each one of them. They only had like 30 seconds to give their pitch. Yeah. And, so like it was on and off, and it's like, hey, you had to give your message as quickly as you could. You had a few slides, and then you were gone. And then everybody there in the room had on the app, you just voted for the winner. And I think it was Alt Fee, right, was the winner for this past year, which they did a good. I remember good. They did good.
Were there any entries who did not have AI as part of their pitch?
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember if AI wasn't like their feature set, Tom, they definitely threw AI in as a bullet point somewhere.
That's kind of
they're not getting away from that.
No. But here's the thing, and I saw this at Legal Week, and it's what I would have done if I was at the Tech Show. But how many people who were talking about it, not just in startup, but overall, were adept at explaining to you how they were using AI. At Legal Week, I thought there was a lot of, we got AI good. Right. Not a whole lot of depth of, well, we're doing this, we're doing that. You know what I mean? For example, I don't know if you went to the session. I wish I'd been there. There was a generative AI session at the beginning that had Dan Pennington and Reed Trouts on it. Two of my all-time favorites. Did you attend that?
I did, and that was excellent. In fact, I think it was Jane or Joy Reardon that was on that panel with both of them. Yeah, that was excellent. They did an excellent job. Did they get under
the hood? Were they able to talk about?
Not so much. That was more like a keynote type of a thing. Yeah. But they did a good job of just. I don't know. I felt like they did a good job of kind of setting the tone, if you will, for the other AI sessions, Tom. Okay. Because of course, Reed and Dan, and it's just they were talking about like, okay, here is how you should calm down, everybody. Like this is what we could look at. These are some of the areas where they're already being involved. This isn't going to be anything that is just going to create the legal apocalypse of any kind. I just thought they did a good sobering job of just setting that stage for that. Good. And then, of course, there was a myriad of other sessions, of course, that dealt with AI. But again, the ABA Tech Show, they tried to focus. There was a couple of sessions I didn't get to attend, but it was like how to utilize AI practically in your law practice. I did attend one session, though, Tom, that I have to say it was with Judge Herb Dixon. You know Herb really well, and Pablo Arredondo from formerly Case Text, now Thomson Reuters. And I think, I don't know if you've seen Pablo speak before, but I think he does he does one of the best jobs, I think, Tom, of breaking down what really is a fairly simple approach of like under the hood of AI, and be able to just explain that. That session was packed, and Judge Dixon, he was like, well, he just kind of gave the introduction. Then he's like, now I'm just going to sit back and let Pablo talk about it. And I thought, I know just a little bit of Pablo, and I thought he's a startup guy. So I'm like, okay, he's going to really kind of, pull out all the bells and whistles. But Tom, he did a great job of explaining, like, this is an algorithm. This is an algorithm that's trying to guess the next word, right? Or it's trying to guess based on an entire large language model of what is going to be the most appropriate response for this. When it came down, I thought this was great. He had one slide here. I'm going to paraphrase it, but he had one slide when he got to the point where he was talking about how AI is going to affect the legal practice. And he put this slide up and he goes, what if somebody came to your law firm and was looking for a job, and in their job interview, they said, hey, I'm very excited to work for you, and I'm going to do the best that I can do at my work, but sometimes I might make some things up. Sometimes you might need to confirm my work, but I'm going to try the best that I can. He's like, would you hire this person? Maybe, maybe not. But it was just the way that he did it. I'm not doing him justice, but the way that he explained that, I thought just did a really good job of helping people to better understand where AI can fit within an actual legal practice. It's not going to take everything over, but you could hire that person. It's just that, you're going to have to supervise them, right? And that's part of what we're having to deal with, things like ChatGPT and other AI, Gen AI.
How about, and I don't know that there were any or many vendors in the eDiscovery space, any AI eDiscovery talk, which, I'm interested in.
I know. And here's the thing, Tom, when it comes, you and I both remember the days of ABA Techshow when pretty much 90% of the vendors down in the exhibit hall were probably eDiscovery vendors.
That was the big word back then.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess on one hand, I'm sad to say, but I'm also happy to say that I don't know that there was, I think maybe one eDiscovery vendor. And that was Ultimatum, which was only there, I think, because they were part of the Startup Alley. They were part of the startup competition on that. Otherwise, all of the typical names that you and I would recognize, and probably talk to a lot of folks about, they were not there. And again, I'm sad to that just because it's the circles that you and I run in, but I'm kind of also happy in the sense that, there is a world outside of eDiscovery, right? And again, going back to the attendees, even the people that I would talk to, Tom, they were there because they were looking for practice management, right? A Clio or a MyCase or Practice Panther. They were there because they were looking for document management, Net Documents, iManage. They were there because they were looking for time and billing components. They were there looking for a wide variety of other legal technology topics, and tools to help them in their practice. Yep. And, there's other conferences that you and I go to that there's not a lot of those other options. And so I just always enjoy seeing attendees come to the ABA Tech Show. And as you know, one of the biggest benefits for them is just being able to go to the exhibit hall and go back and forth between this vendor and that vendor and compare this vendor to this vendor and ask, well, this vendor said this, and how they love that. Even when I was on the planning board, that was the thing, that was the feedback we always got from attendees, was that they could just go back and forth. Back to the sad part, there were several folks, of course, because of the topics that I was talking with, they would come up to me and ask about eDiscovery. And this, sometimes they would say, well, we need to organize our documents for Discovery to do production. So we have Net Documents. And so, we were trying to use that immediately. And I'm like, no, it's like, that's not the tools. Like, there are no tools here that you can best utilize for that. It could work, but it's not the best tool. Yeah. So anyway, some of that just kind of, makes me a little sad in the sense of like, hey, there's got to be better ways to help you on that. But that's one of the great things I love about it, because I'm sitting with somebody at breakfast and I can open up that conversation and kind of help point them in the right direction. And that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned it a minute ago, but one of the things, of course, that I love about the Tech Show is the people I've met and have become friends with over the years. So I'm just going to throw a couple of names out. I don't even know if they were there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Actually, I do know this. The first one, Kevin O'Keefe, was there, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Um,
And he always does, usually either Thursday or Friday, he does beer for bloggers.
Right.
Which is always a fun. I didn't get to go this year, but he always does a great job of getting people together. And he always has some good reflections on these shows. He does a whole lot of them, too.
Yeah. How about my old friend Sharon Nelson? I know she's pretty much retired now.
Yeah, Sharon and John, they're so active, but I think there are some. I don't want to speak for them. Just maybe on the health component, the health aspect or so. Yeah. And so they're always in our thoughts. Sharon and John are always fun to talk with, and they're always so active in this. And they've written some great books on eDiscovery for the division as well over the years.
Sharon and I actually first met many, many years ago at the old. It was the. I'm blanking on the name of the group, but it was one of the early document standards groups. Where I first met her, and that didn't really go anywhere, but it got a lot of people together talking about things. And so that was great. How about Jim Calloway, I presume, was there?
Oh, of course. Jim was there. And it's so funny because, we've run into Jim so often that sometimes he's able to bring his wife.
Yeah.
And so I remember one time I was down in the exhibit hall, and we were at that little bookstore area that I was telling you about. And I turned around and I saw her, and I'm like, hey, well, she was there grabbing some popcorn or something, because she's like, I'm going to go back to the room and work. Jim is off doing his thing, and she's there, they're having a good time. But of course, she has to do her work as well. But it's always fun to see them.
That's great. That's great. How about who am I missing? How about some other names?
Well, you mentioned Sharon and John. So Dave Reese, I don't know if you've seen Dave in so long, but it was just great to see him. He's retired. He was telling me he's of counsel of his firm, but he just is so untiring. Like, I don't know how he keeps doing it. In fact, we were walking one night to a dinner, and I was walking with the group that I was with, and we passed Dave. He's on his walker, but he's just going. And I'm like, Dave, do you need an Uber or something? And he's like, no, this is what I like to do. It's good for me. And I'm like, man, you go. That's
good for him. Good for him.
That's really great. And then see Natalie Kelly.
Natalie.
All of the.
She's with the Southern Poverty Law Center now, right?
She is, Tom. And she says she's doing a great job, and it's just. Right. But I got to see our friend Sean Holohan. In fact, I remember seeing Sean right as I was coming up. She's a Louisiana bar practice management advisor. I was coming up the escalator right when I got there, and I see Sean. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You're a New Orleanian. Like, you've got Mardi Gras going on. But she said that she already did three parades before she came.
She's in a group she's in a walking group, and she was in. So
she got her Mardi Gras on before she came down, because the practice management advisors always have like a meeting that day before Tech Show. So it was just fun to see her. Cool. But Nikki Black. I mean, so many of the old folks that I mean,
and Bob, we mentioned Bob Ambrosi a couple times.
Of course, Bob was there. Bob. I know. Yeah. And he's so busy too. He was at Legal Week, but he only could stay for like a couple of days. He had another.
I think I saw him across, the hall at one point. Right. And we waved at each other. That was it.
And that was it.
He was gone. Yeah.
Well, that's how it is sometimes. In fact, the first time I saw Jim Calloway, I was going up the escalator. He was coming down, so I just kind of held out my hand so we could do a high five on the way down. That's how some of these things go, at the conferences.
So, I don't want to take whole much more of your time, because I know you got to get back to studying.
Right.
General takeaways, what you're feeling, you sound
it was good.
Ethic.
I am. This, Tom. I mean, again, it's just any time for me when I see, to me, it always goes back to the attendees. If there are people that have taken time out of their day, literally, quote, losing money by coming to a conference as opposed to
Yeah.
staying home wherever they are from in the country or from Canada. We've got a lot of folks that come from Canada, and it's just the fact that they're taking time out of their practice, their day, to come to a conference with a specific intent of learning something that they need, right? Or they usually have a tool or a specific goal, right, that they came for. Document management, practice management. Somebody was telling me that they had the old Time Matters, which was the desktop software, right?
Sure.
And so they know it's out of support time, and so it's just they've kind of kept it going.
I do,
With some duct tape, and it's like, what do we do? And it's just, to me, those are always the best thing, other than of course seeing all of our friends over and over. But it's just being able to help out some folks that are there, that are there because they have this goal. And again, if I can help a few folks like that, or point them in the right direction, or even introduce them to somebody else that's there, then that's, to me, that I walk away as a success, right, at that point. But generally I was thrilled to see it. I thought the planning board did an excellent job on the sessions. Just quickly, I was thinking another big topic, it's sort of on the AI spectrum, is Ben Shore, our old friend Ben, was there. He's at Microsoft now, and a lot of people were talking about Copilot. And I feel like, almost just to kind of wrap this up back into the AI side, that's one of those surreptitious AI components, right, Tom? Because you've probably seen it pop up on your Outlook. I've seen it on mine or in Teams. It's like, it's one of those things that is already kind of built into a lot of what we're doing, whether it's OneDrive. We all have Microsoft accounts. And I just, and of course, Ben, I think, always does an excellent job of kind of helping people understand that. We know he used to be a legal technology consultant before he went to Microsoft. Sure. Yeah. But he's just still so excited about that kind of that topic. And, so for me, I feel like that's what the ABA Tech Show does so well. I think even better than probably most other conferences, is really help folks at law firms, corporate legal departments that may not have a bunch of resources, right? They may or may not have a full-time IT director. They may or may not have a consultant. They may or may not, they certainly probably don't have an eDiscovery staff member. So they can come here, one place where there are so many resources there, and it just helps them. And for me, that's what the ABA Tech Show continues to still do so well, and that's encouraging.
Well, I think, I'll channel my inner Groucho Marx here. I think you said the magic word, which is Copilot. I've been saying in presentations I've given for months now that I thought Microsoft was the sleeping giant of Discovery. That they're all in on OpenAI. They've invested in it. They've been moving it into a lot of their programs. They've incorporated into some aspects of Word, into Outlook. They did very much the same thing when they bought Equivio and started pushing that into Office 365.
Good observation.
I think you're going to start to see them mesh not just Copilot and Office 365, but you also said Teams.
Yes.
I think by the end of the year, that could be a major game changer in this space. And, I suspect that, people who integrate well with that, because they make no bones about it. They don't view Office 365 as any sort of a review tool. But they do view it as sort of an ECA tool.
Yes.
Like we can do the first pass culling, identification maybe of if you use it with their litigation hold and grab everything already, it's going to be a very powerful tool. That we've talked about some other companies that don't do a lot of marketing. Microsoft, is such a giant, they don't need to market. Like you said,
have to market, right?
Copilot's just going to show up on your button.
It already is, right? Yeah, like I haven't been into Teams for a couple of days, and I go in and the button said, "Hey, would you like me to summarize the things that?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, actually, that would be very helpful. Thank you so much."
And I will tell you,
already there.
AI is using, or Zoom is using AI to do summaries right now. I'm summarizing. I've got it running in the background.
I see that.
So you're going to see that sort of I think, incorporation by Microsoft more and more, which
Yeah.
it's really gonna change the eDiscovery field,
Yeah.
especially
I
at our
agree.
end, at the low
Yeah.
end, right? The lower end,
Yeah.
not so much for the AmLaw 50, the multi-billion-dollar cases. There's a big case that was reported this week. We'll be talking about it in our session tomorrow, our case law
Nice.
session. That Maura Grossman has a really, really detailed protocol that she wrote. But we're talking a bazillion documents.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. No, I
that's
think
not
you're,
the
yeah. We've been
it,
talking about that even just a little bit quickly because you and I, we do this when we get together. But Andy Green, our managing partner at the Nextpoint Law Group, we were exactly talking about this, Tom. It's like, because we have a lot of clients that are not, Fortune 500, probably not
no.
even we're close, but they are big enough that, of course, they have an enterprise license with Office 365, and they have email accounts that need to be collected for civil litigation that they're involved in.
Yep.
And it's like they don't have a resource to throw at that. And it's like, okay, well, we can go in and maybe throw some keywords at it and do a collection, but what if you already have a Copilot-like type tool that could go and kind of do that initial collection and culling for you? Well, that would be good. So we're talking. I think you're right. I love this.
There's a feature right now where it'll and I haven't tested this, so I can't speak to how good it is, but it'll take email threads and summarize them for you. I mean, how helpful is
Hello.
that? Right?
Yeah, very.
So,
well,
yeah,
okay. I didn't mean to get off on that, but I did want to just mention because I'm glad that I hadn't even thought about your angle, Tom, and that's what I always enjoy talking with you. It's like you're right. Like they just took Equivio and kind of like melted that into the background, and that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, and it's not like they're making any, like you said, they're not hiding the ball. Like you and I at Legal Week, we got to attend that breakfast briefing, right, where they were exactly talking about how they're utilizing AI in this. They're just not making a big splash about it, I don't think, like other companies are that you and I know.
I think they
but
consider
it's like
it a technical tool. And
exactly.
We're going to incorporate it as part of technology.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Right.
Good stuff.
So,
good stuff.
Brett, great talking to you as always. Glad to hear your thoughts on the tech show since I unfortunately missed it, and I hate to do that every year.
I know.
Good luck on the bar exam.
Oh.
And
thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Nextpoint Law Firm, and I'll talk to you in a couple weeks down the road when you can decompress.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk, Tom. Thanks again.
Thank you.